So today I brought a very new topic for discussion with all my PG resident or the post PGs, and that is the legal angle of the dermatology branch, or I would say in general what should be the legal points you have to keep in your mind if you are starting your private clinic new, or if you're doing some teleconsultation, telemedicine. So this is something which I felt is a very important topic and that need to be taken care of whenever we are setting up our clinic. So let us discuss the legal angle behind the practice of dermatology. So there's a very good word by William Osler, and he said that without books, studying disease is like sailing an uncharted sea, whereas studying books alone is like not going to the sea at all. So you should have a broader experience with each and everything. Just reading the books will not give you all insight about the practice. Now, what are the topics we are touching up here? They are the importance of medical consent forms, then medical record keeping. We'll discuss something about a little bit about telemedicine, advertisement by the doctors, dermatological quacks, and the personal medical indemnity insurance. Now, one of the biggest issue in dermatological clinic is, definitely you have to make a diagnosis. That's the first thing you have to do. But proper diagnosis followed by counseling and addressing to all the patient, all the answers of the patient related to the disease procedure is very important. The question is, whatever we discuss with the patient, we usually do not write it down on the piece of the paper. We just write down the name of the disease and maybe we write down the treatment and some few precautions which you wanted the patient to know. But how to put everything which is discussed verbally in written? Because please remember everything. Nowadays, there is a very much increase in the medical legal cases, and because there is no way to prove that you have discussed this with the patient. Nowadays, it is very important that whatever you are telling the patient, it should be in written and signed by the patient. So now comes the importance of the consent form. But the question is format of the consent forms. What are the things you have to or you should mention in a consent form? Uh, does it vary according to the disease? Does it vary according to the procedure? So these are some of the things which you should know. Coming to the first consent form. Now, IADVL, the association has given us the format of consent forms of a lot of conditions. So one can use these ready-made consent forms which is available on the website of IADVL. And this is just one example I have attached here where the IIDVL Academy Special Interest Group have attached a consent form format. Lot of modifications keep coming. This is the modification which was done in 2018-19. You can see that this consent form has a proper, name of the patient, the address, the hospital ID if he's an inpatient or outpatient, the phone number, and then a proper consent thing where you mention about the procedure done, the place, the site where we are doing the procedure, what is the condition, and whether the patient agrees to whatever we are doing or not. So these are the consent forms which are available in the IDVL websites, and you can just directly go and access it from there. Coming to the second very important thing, and that is medical record keeping. When medical negligence is asserted by the patient or the patient family, the judicial system primarily depends upon the documented evidence to support the claim. So it is very important for us to document each and everything. Specifically, when you feel that the diagnosis is not clear or when you feel that the patient is not very cooperative, make sure that you write each and everything, whatever you feel that you have told to the patient. Record should not only show what is done, but it should also explain and justify each and every medical decision which is taken by you. Always remember the 5C: clean, complete, chronological, comprehensive, and correct. Whatever you write, it should be very, very clean and complete. Always write each and everything in a chronological order. What you did first, what you did then, and then, and then. It should be comprehensive and everything, whatever you mention, should be correct. Remember, doctor with good records means good defense. Doctor with poor record means poor defense, and doctor with no record means no defense. So in your defense, you have the medical records. Whatever you write on the patient's file is something which helps or which make a great difference in your defense if there is any medical legal issues. Res ipsa loquitur. It means that the boss is always responsible. So if something is done in your department, if something is done by a junior, but because you are heading that department, it is your duty to take care of whatever is responsible. Mistake commonly done by the doctor. Don't hand over the medical records without handwritten request to the third party like TPA and insurance company. Please remember, we have a nature that we just give everything to the TPAs or insurance company. Make sure you do not hand over the medical record without handwritten request to them. So that, for example, if there is any medical legal issues or any medical legal case which was done to you, you should have the document at least with you. And if the insurance company is asking for that, you have something in written with them that, okay, I want this particular document, I want this patient card, this document. So everything should be written. Prescription without date, no mention of name, age, and gender. This is something which is, like hitting your own leg. So always remember that whenever you are treating a patient, you mention the name, age, the date. So nowadays they are all printed. We get the printed prescriptions. But if you are just doing it in your practice, make sure you write about each and everything. Overwriting, scratching should be avoided. So when I started my practice, our teachers used to say that if you even scratch one, just throw that prescription paper, write everything new. So overwriting, scratching should be avoided. There should be no 24/7 CCTV audio video in the examination room. So this is something which is very, very important for you to understand. And this happened with a lot of dermatologists. There are a lot of case reports which says that, in one of the hospital, there was a camera which was placed, although it was placed in the lobby, but that camera, the area which it was capturing, it included the procedure room. And there was one of the female patient who complained that he was showing something internally and she was not comfortable when she saw the camera, which is present in the lobby, but obviously taking capturing the procedure room also. So make sure that you have no CCTV which is there in the procedure room. You can keep it in the outdoors where you're not examining the patient, because these are some of the things which can go against you. How to keep medical records? So medical records, you can keep physical medical records also. Nowadays, there are a lot of electronic medical record software, EMRs, which are available, and it is also permitted by Indian Evidence Act under the 65B. So now you can keep the medical records on computers using electronic medical record software. There are many, many EMRs available. You can just get a yearly, monthly subscription and you can just record it. They are safe also because the patient's information is confidential and it is only shown to the doctors, not anybody else. So this is a newer way. Instead of like just taking and keeping multiple files in the storage room, which like it becomes saturated at one point of time. So nowadays it is better to keep a electronic medical software system, a record system. What is the benefit of electronic medical record? Large practice can be managed effectively using the EMR system. Obviously, the larger practice can be easily managed. The software allows easy entry, storage, transfer, and retrieval of medical data. Doctor can keep a track of appointments. Another very important feature. You can just keep a track of the appointments. Drawbacks of traditional paper-based method of record keeping can be successfully overcome. Coming to a very new and a recent concept, and that is telemedicine. Now, telemedicine has been approved recently after the pandemic hit. So, recently, court allowed treating non-COVID illnesses by telemedicine. A citizen-friendly web-based teleconsultation have also been launched where the patient can have a safe, structured, video-based clinical consultation with the doctors while remaining in the confines of their home. Some points you have to remember while doing a teleconsultation. Telemedicine consultation must not be anonymous. You should know the patient. You have to ask about the name of the patient, the age of the patient. RMPs should verify the patient's identity through various means. Age verification should be done so that when you're writing the prescription, the age matches. RMP should confirm the patient's age. Minor patients need adult supervision and the verification should be identified. Whether the person who is taking or whether the person who is asking about the complaint, whether he is the parent or he is a, somebody, he is a guardian or someone. So you have to make sure that you ask properly about the name, the age, and the other relevant information about the patient. Coming to patient consent. Patient consent is essential for telemedicine consultation also. Consent can be either implied or explicit. Implied consent, if the patient initiate the telemedicine, the telemedicine consultation consent is implied. Similar to in-person consultation, the patient action implies consent. Explicit consent is this requires when a health worker, RMPs or caregiver initiate the telemedication consultation. Patient can provide explicit consent through various forms like emails, text, audio, video message or direct communication with RMPs. RMPs must record explicit consent in their patient's record. Local laws are applicable as per the country of the patient's residence. Please remember, never consult a patient outside the country or outside the state through telemedicine because the laws of different state varies, and in terms of the law it is usually the law of the patient's resident state. Okay, so consulting beyond the particular there are difference in the laws beyond one particular state, so you should be well versed about each and every laws. Coming to prescribing medicine, what are the medicines which can be prescribed under the telemedicine? Professional discretion of RMPs apply. Same accountability as in the person consultation. Medication prescribed when the RMP gathers adequate patient information. Specific limitation based on consultation type and mode. Medication categories determined by the central government. So central government has issued a list of the medicines and they have classified the medicines into list O, which is the common medicines. List O means you can give that medicine to any patient through teleconsultation. The list A, it includes the drugs which can be given only after the medical consultation, the first video consultation, and drug B can only be given on the follow-ups. And there is a group of drugs which is prohibited, which you should not give. Prohibited list include the high-risk substances and you should never prescribe them through telemedicine. Emergency situation, obviously if there is an emergency situation, do not do telemedicine. You can just completely say no to the patient. You can ask the patient that it is better to go for a physical consultation because it is an emergency situation. It requires more detailed examination and in-person touch. So please remember that it is always better to ask the patient to go for in-person care when there is emergencies. Advertising by the doctors, that is another thing nowadays, because of the advent of the social media and everybody is now promoting the products, but is it a correct way? Is it approved by the ethics of a doctor? Can you advertise yourself, or can you ask the patient to consult you or come to your clinic? Please remember, the RMPs is permitted to make a formal announcement in any media within 3 months regarding the following. So you can advertise, but what? You can advertise about when are you starting your practice? On the change of type of the practice. For example, previously you were just doing a pure dermatological practice, but now you have recently brought a new laser machines and you are starting the cosmetic practice. So you can just inform this to the patient. Or if you are changing the place, for example, previously you used to sit in a different hospital, now you have started your own clinic, or now you have started the hospital in which you are sitting. So change in the address can also be advertised. You can just announce it on the print media, electronic or social media. On temporary absence from the duty, you can inform the patient that you are not available from this to this date. On resumption of duty, so if you are back on duty, then you can also inform this to the patient. And public declaration of the charges, that can also be done, that previously your fees was this much and now you have increased your fees or any procedure charges to this much. So these are the only thing which a doctor can formally announce using any media, whether it is print, electronic or social. Other than this, nowadays what is happening, physicians have their own websites, and that's so true. The physicians, they keep forming their they keep promoting the practice which they do. They also put like the specifications, advertisement. The doctors are on social medias and you know that they're all endorsing the product. They're just keeping a product and they're just promoting those products. Doctors also write articles for self promotions. None of these activities should include any brand advertisement or self-promotion. Please remember the guideline says that if it is an informative video, it is okay. But if you are promoting or endorsing any brand, that is not at all advisable. So please remember, this is something which I'm seeing nowadays, that not many of the doctors are following these guidelines, but it is very, very important that you cannot endorse any brand or you cannot do self promotions on social media. Dermatological quacks. This is again something which is very challenging as a dermatologist, because there are so many self-proclaimed cosmeticians and dermatologists also. Just they do some 1 year degree and 1 year course. They're not even done any course and they're just doing something in the parlor and they call themselves as cosmetologist. So quacks survive the most by the advertisement. So how do they promote themselves? By advertisement, and that is how they leave the qualified person behind. They can claim guarantee cure for many incurable disease. They have no worries because they don't have any license which can be cancelled, right? So they can do anything in the world, whatever they want, they can just write because they are not qualified, and that is why there is no legal issue which can be done. So warning is given by the medical council, apology for violating the MCI. So in the past also, so many dermatologic quacks were reported. Many of them were, like they were given warnings. Sometimes the strict actions were also taken care of. But still we see a lot of people doing this, regularly. And in fact, they have a better clientage, like I don't want to quote the names, but there are many, many people who are not even MBBS and they're practicing medicine by giving injections and they're doing whatnot in dermatology because it is easier to get the machines, less learning time, and that is why a lot of people are doing it, which is unethical. Now, what are the take home points with this session? So it was a very short session, but I wanted to bring this into the notice of all the dermatologists who are listening to me, who have recently started their practice or who are right now in their, doing MDs. First of all, please make sure that whatever you are doing to the patient, you always take a consent. It should be a written consent, which is always best if you're doing a procedure. Second, you should not promote yourself or you should not do any advertisement because that is not allowed or that is unethical. Third thing is maintain the patient's information. You can use the electronic mode. Nowadays, we have a lot of EMRs which are available. The medical records can be kept electronically. It is very important to write all the things which you have discussed with the patient on paper, because if there is any medical legal issue, this will help you later. Okay. Next is about the telemedicine. Telemedicine has its strict guidelines. If you feel it is an emergency condition, you have to send the patient for in-person and proper physical examination in proper consultation. There is some list of drugs which can be given through telemedicine, and there are something which or some drugs which cannot be given through telemedicine. So always make sure that you keep a check on all these things. Okay. So these are some of the take home message, and I want all of you to please keep that in your mind whenever you are practicing um, or you are having your own clinic. Make sure that you keep a check on all these things. Thank you all of you and have a nice day.